waste product of glycolysis. So cellular respiration produces lactate, okay? Plays a role in glucose production in the liver, gluconeogenesis. One of my favorite things. During exercise, some of the lactic acid produced by skeletal muscle is transported to the liver via the blood and converted back to glucose. Isn't that cool? That's, if anybody's into recycling like my spouse, this is pretty cool. It's pretty cool anyway. This is a simple reason why you can continue to do things when you seemingly are exhausted and can't go any farther in a survival mode. Remember, it's not necessarily efficient though. It is released back into the bloodstream and travels back to the skeletal muscle to be used as an energy source. The cycle of lactate to glucose between the muscle and the liver is called the Cori cycle. Serves as a direct fuel source for skeletal muscle and the heart. And again though, the more lactate that you have floating around in the body through gluconeogenesis, it's going to help, but it's going to become corrupted at some point too, where it's not going to be very effective anymore when you're going to crash. Okay? Muscle contractility. Contractility depends on muscle force production, speed of contraction, and muscle fiber efficiency. Okay? Fast twitch fibers contain more myosin cross bridges per cross-sectional area, produce 10 to 20% more force than slow twitch. Have a higher concentration of myosin, ATP, allowing them to contract at a higher speed. Slow twitch muscles, on the other hand, are more efficient at using oxygen, we've kind of got that already, to generate ATP to fuel continuous muscle contractions due to their higher concentrations of myoglobin, larger number of capillaries, and higher mitochondrial enzyme activity. Okay? Muscle fatigue. We've all felt that. Joe is going to feel that in a few moments. Muscle fatigue is associated with an acute bout of prolonged exercise in which muscular performance declines and sensation of muscle pain occur. When muscle glycogen is depleted, an increase in the use of fat for energy occurs. Clearly, fat mobilization and oxidation are much more slower, resulting in a reduction of power output of muscle. Drinking a glucose and water solution near the point of fatigue may help for a short time, but glycogen will remain depleted. High carb diets of calories, 60% or more calories of carbohydrates in your diet, and carbohydrate loading will extend performance before what's called the slang term, hitting the wall, when you have a crash, when you lose your available glycogen. Okay, so, like I said, fueling for exercise is important. Carb loading can only to a certain degree be effective though. We're going to leave with that. So, you can only store so much glycogen, as I gave the example of having a cup over a fountain or whatever. It's going to fill up with water and then the water's going to start spilling out of it. You're only going to be able to carry so much. Okay? So some people go overboard on the carb loading. Might give them a mental edge. I had a friend that became obese from the time we were in high school to the present. His carb loading took place over 30 years.
What would you say, like 2 cups dry? 2 cups dry pasta or so for a carb load?
Yeah, it depends on the
Not
individual
8?
too. Because the other consideration would be how fast do you think your metabolism is to begin with and what your RMR is.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give a blanket answer because there's too many variables. Like I said, that's what's nice about figuring out your RMR, and then you could probably make more intelligent choices. Like I said, with myself, I'm not a great runner to begin with. Every marathon I felt crappy about, but the last one I did, I was more happy-go-lucky, and I found having the beer with the Spring Breakers gave me a boost. Probably mentally, but also physically. Beer can sometimes be termed liquid bread. Chief Robbins calls beer liquid bread. So anyways, I did get a little bit of a boost. The last marathon I did was the best one I felt. I trained instinctively, but that goes back to the fact, gang, if you're in an intense training regime and you're trying to train for performance, know the rules before you break them. That holds true for a lot of things in life too. You need to know the proper protocols for something before you start mixing it up. That makes sense? Like I said, anybody I know that ever might want to do something extreme, like a marathon's just the beginning of extreme, because we have the Ironmans and so forth. But a marathon itself, I never thought I could do one. So when I did one, I felt fabulous. But the first time I did it, I didn't want to do it blind, so I followed a protocol that a lot of people use called the Hal Higdon method. And what that is, it's an example of what we call, it's entry-level borderline undulating periodization, which we'll get into when we get into the big book. But it's a good place to start, and then once you've done it, then you kind of have a feeling for it, and then you can modify it and so forth.
It's called Hal Higdon?
Hal Higdon, yep. Nathan, did you do Higdon at all when you did your first marathon?
I read a couple of training plans and did the day on day off thing. Every other day I ran 8 miles.
Okay.
And then I had a long run at the end of the week.
Okay. Sounds similar.
Yeah.
Well, what Higdon did, excuse me, you'll have days on, days off, but you started out with the assumption that you're at the level that you could run a 10K, so 6.2 miles without stopping or having too much difficulty. Didn't mention the speed, but so what, just in a nutshell, how in the realm of running would look, an undulating periodization, you're going with a known, you assumed you could run a 10K, okay? So your training runs, were called maintenance runs, during the course of a week, like you might take 3 or 4 runs, 2 miles, a 3-miler, a 2-mile, a 3-miler, and then on your long day, which would be Saturday or Sunday, then you're gonna go up and do 6 miles. Okay, then you're gonna rest. And then, so the next week, you might do a 3-miler and a 4-miler, a 3-miler and a 4-miler, and then do maybe 7 on your long run and so forth. So do you see, you're going back to a maintenance, but the maintenance is going to be just a little bit higher, and then the long run's gonna be higher. And then your maintenance runs will be a little bit higher next week and so forth. So if you chart it in 3 dimensions, it would look like a helix going up like this. And that's the premise of undulating periodization. When we get into our big book, we're gonna get into a protocol called the Integrated Fitness Training Module. And it's going to address both resistant training and cardiovascular. And the quick thing to point out is, it's appropriate for beginners as well as advanced lifters and or runners, noting that you may never get into a performance phase. That's just, yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this St. George equation. So
Mifflin St. George?
My 3,300 calories is just for taking up space.
For homeostatic mechanism, correct.
That's not accounting for any kind of activity.
Fueling for activity, correct. But it is, because then you use the correction factor.
Oh, okay.
The correction factor
All right.
is the
Okay, I got it, yeah. So 1964, if I just wanted to like sit and watch the boob tube all day, I'd have to consume 1,900 calories.
Did you, then I'm assuming your figures are
Right,
correct
right.
because you used the first correction factor.
And then I account for my I recalculated, I did the very active instead of the extra active,
Yes,
and I got 33.
exactly.
So that's if I wanna, I gotta consume 3,300 calories to do workouts and.
Yes, to maintain that
Now,
activity.
what if I wanna cut?
Okay,
Like,
now,
cut up, like define.
and do the same amount of work though,
Yes.
I would use the next correction factor
Okay,
lower.
okay, I gotcha.
Yes.
I gotcha. So, yeah, so that's just taking away the, like, the five, like, what you said before, 500, cut 500 calories, you know, from, okay.
Per day,
Alright, gotcha.
yeah, for 7 days,
Okay.
theoretically, a pound of weight loss would ensue. And again, on paper it works, in reality, it may work better, it may work worse.
Right.
Okay, so remember, if we left anything, we got into the Mifflin St. Jean, and I love it, but recall, when you're using that final multiplier that they call the correction factor, you've gotta use an honest, an honest correction factor, or it's not gonna work. Okay, so what Nathan said was, for an RMR, if he's gonna be a couch potato or illness, say you got the flu really bad and you don't wanna gain weight, you wanna remain hydrated and all the rest of it. So that would be an appropriate
Caloric intake.
a caloric intake and adaptation to the Mifflin St. Jean, okay? Like I said, the only way, if you're trying to help somebody, you're not prescribing a diet, but help them with that, you do a Mifflin St. Jean, and you know in your head, hey, they can't be doing this because weight would be falling off them. That's when a food journal comes into play, where you could request a food journal from the person, and then looking at the food journal, then you'd know if they're telling you Bushiyas or not. I grew up with an Italian boy, we can all figure what Bushia means, right? Yeah, that's fun, my mom used to use that term, Bobby was his name. And his dad and his mom came from Italy. So if we were lying to him, they'd say, you're telling Bushiyas, you know, and that's kind of fun. So anyways, heat, thermoregulation, and altered condition. Okay, we're kind of getting on some stuff, not really exactly what we need, but remember, mechanisms of thermoregulation. Evaporation is interesting because at rest, it only accounts for 20% of your thermoregulation. Notice, in exercise, 80%, okay? So, if you want to be your best in exercise, a lot of the clothing and so forth has gotten a lot better over the years. You know, the Under Armours and the 511, I'm sorry?
Drywick.
Yeah, Drywick, 511, and all the rest of it. I'm kind of the heathen. If I don't look too bad, and if I'm running in heat, I just like wearing a pair of shorts. And again, gang, anybody that's done a marathon, Nathan has, anybody else done a marathon? It's interesting. It looks like a panty raid on the side of the road. Not necessarily there's going to be undergarments, but people shed layers as needed. Okay? So what I do when I do a marathon, I've only done the Bayshore, I've done it several times though. It's usually quite chilly at the beginning. 0700, right out here, might only be 45 degrees or something, might be even lightly raining. That's what's nice if you have a friend, a companion, a partner or something. I'll wear sweats and a hoodie, and they'll give you like a minute, 90-second countdown, 90 seconds, 1 minute and so forth. Okay, off come the pants, off comes the hoodie, but I still probably have 4 layers of t-shirts on. So, first mile, I might get rid of one. Third mile, might get rid of another one. By Bluff Road, about 6 miles into it, I'm down to 1 t-shirt then. But that's how, and by the end of a marathon, my God, the amount of water you will lose if you're putting forth some effort. So yeah, the side of the road looks like a litter box of clothing, which is nice. I think the race promoters pick the stuff up and wash it and get it to Goodwill. Like downstairs, and up here, we get a lot of clothes that goes unclaimed. What I do is I pick it all up. First we want to find, if there's something nice, we want to make sure we try to get it back to the owner. But if we can't find the owner, we wash the stuff up and I give it to Sheriff Bean, the sheriff of Antrim County. And they're in Mansalona, like I keep mentioning Mansalona, that's a depressed area. He gets the stuff to high school students. So it's an excellent way to do that.
I have a question quick
Yeah.
about, you had said, as far as water intake goes, that drink when you're thirsty.
Yes. And we
Trying to
went,
think
in
how-
in the chapter prior, we went through some recommendations, you know.
Okay, when I'm doing an event of some sort,
Mhm.
I'm drinking water like crazy. Some of my teammates will do the whole event without hardly taking a drink.
Mhm.
I've gotten dehydrated or
Mhm.
suffered from dehydration, even though I'm downing and I'm a sweater, so
Mhm.
it's all coming right back out. Is that doing myself injustice by downing so much water, or?
Well, if you, in the past, if I understand it correctly, if you think you've gotten dehydrated to the point where you got the headache and you're throwing up, probably you need more water, or you didn't, prior to the event, you were dehydrated to begin with. That's my only guess. I've only thrown up in a run once, and it was really bizarre. I don't know how it happened, because it was at the Cherry Festival 15K, which is normally a hop, skip, and a jump for me. Another thing, like I told Nathan and all of you, if you've done a marathon, you're not arrogant, but it's like, I only have to run 9.3 miles. This is a piece of cake. Well, last time I did the 15K, it's like, my girlfriend was there, it's like, God, I don't feel that great, and I hurled. Well, she said, that's funny you did that. Some other people did too. And, she'd never seen that on me. All I can wonder is, was there something in the cups or something? Because normally, I train instinctively. I've never been dehydrated like that before. So, I don't know the answer to that. But if you feel the nausea and you're gonna hurl, probably you needed more water. Or you've got some kind of an electrolyte imbalance unknown to you.
That's what I'm thinking, because some people recommended putting electrolytes in my water bottles.
Sure.
Which I haven't tried yet, but I'm planning to.
When you say event, do you mean your body competition events? Or
No,
your
no.
running?
I mean, well, King of the Mountain was one of them, and I guess that could be a mix of just overexertion too. But I just had chills everywhere, goosebumps, and yeah,
Yeah, it's hard for me to speculate, but you might have had a little bit of an imbalance to begin with or something.
I cup Gatorade with water.
Mhm.
Like, I don't drink a Gatorade by itself, I mix it with.
Likewise.
That's just a sign of good health.
What Nathan said makes a lot of sense. I usually get the powdered Gatorade and make my own. I'll make it a little bit lean, okay? And like I said, also too, I've heard of some athletes using the Pedialyte and so forth.
I've done it after an event, but never.
Yeah, beforehand.
But maybe that should.
If you do it in moderation, I don't see any problem with that.
But you can't overdrink, right?
Yeah.
I guess was my question.
You get,
Yeah, you can
water
overdrink
toxicity.
too. Remember,
If you don't
Yeah.
have salt.
your electrolytes will be diluted at that point, remember? Yeah, you can.
Unless you're drinking electrolyte water.
Yeah.
When I do the extreme muck ruck, I'm gonna have a hydration bladder with me, and then I fill it with Gatorade. Not straight
See, I
Gatorade.
just can't drink Gatorade and then.
Yeah.
Well, I get Gatorade powder and I mix a diluted form. It's not as strong as what Gatorade would suggest.
Okay.
Yeah, if you really water Gatorade down, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So.
You don't get that mucus that will.
Normally.
Yeah, that's what I struggle with.
normally
I use a
do
lot of
3 liter
different kinds of
bladder,
powders.
And I do 2 packets of Gatorade per 3 liters of water. And it seems to do really good for me.
It sounded like a low battery indicator, so are you plugged in?
Plug in and find another power source.
Yeah, you're not plugged in. The black.
I've always heard that if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. Is
That's
that true?
wild.
Say again?
I've always heard.
Well, we
that
talked
if you're
about that
thirsty-
yesterday, and that's basically what the Army always says, but he says he doesn't believe in that. He says drink when you're thirsty, but. I
What's
mean,
that?
While you're rucking, just always drink water.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're carrying a 100-pound rack and you're going 10, 20 clicks, you just need to keep on sipping.
Yeah.
Every time we stop, every time you have a chance, we always drink water,
And eat
Ready?
above and beyond, okay?
Yeah. cold exercise. Okay,
Oh, I had a question about the previous slide, actually.
okay,
I don't think you need it unless you want to, but, it said the evaporation was 80% of your exercise. How is that compensated for?
as opposed to rest, yes.
Right, so how is that compensated for a high humidity environment where you wouldn't have very much evaporation going on?
It would still be occurring,
Really?
yeah. Just because it's humid outside doesn't mean you're at the same humidity inside. If you need to dissipate heat, it's gonna come out. Okay, and so, again, in tropical environments and so forth, once in a while up here, yeah, you're already sweating because of it, but a lot of that can be contractile too. It's condensing on you.
Right.
Because you're rising, that you're hotter than the ambient temperature around it. So yeah, this is just something to remember though.
Yeah,
I remember seeing a question about this. So, an exercise evaporation accounts for 80%, that's why I wanted to point that out though. So, in the cold, obviously, there's some other stressors involved too. The way body avoids excessive heat loss is, of course, the vasoconstriction, non-shivering thermogenesis, and shivering. So, remember, shivering is a mechanism to try to make you feel warmer initially, okay? Air and water are two major cold stressors, as we both know. Wind chill increases, so does the risk of freezing body tissue. Body loses heat 4 to 5 times faster in water than in the air of the same temperature. So if you're already cold and you fall into water, i.e. the duck hunters and stuff, or shipwrecks, that kind of thing, you're in a deep world of hurt, okay?
No pun intended.
A deep world of hurt. Now, here's the thing, I hate winter, obviously, but I train outdoors the whole winter because I don't wanna waste my life. If you stay inside, you're missing out. Okay, I hate snow and all the rest of it, but it took me a long time how to figure out how to dress. Now, here's the thing, gang. If you're trying to remain comfortable during a run or some event in the winter, you're probably gonna be quite successful at it. But the thing also to remember is, should you fall and sustain some kind of an injury, then you're not gonna have enough protection. So, a lot of the faculty and so forth saw me taking my police academy kids out in the middle of the night in blizzards and all the rest of it, rolling around in the snow and so forth, and they said, one, are you crazy, and two, are you trying to hurt the kids? And it's like, no, I'm not crazy, I'm doing this for a reason, and two, they know how to dress. So the main thing is, when you're exercising in the cold, hands, feet, head. I never used to wear hats until I started going bald, and I never knew what I was missing. Now, if it's usually below 50 degrees, I put a hat on. And I never found how much comfortable I was in the police academies where I picked that up. I was cold constantly. It's amazing what a hat can do. Does everybody wear a hat?
A beard is amazing too. I'm not one to grow a beard too. I mean, I can grow one fine, but I've noticed a huge difference if I grow out a beard and then shave it in the wintertime. It's 10 times colder without a beard.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I used to have, before mine got all gray like Brett Favre, I used to do the 5-day or the 10-day one, but like I said, when the class started, I had that crap going on because I was trying to get over a little bit of a skin infection there. But again, survivalist stuff in your car, for the love of God, keep a hat and some gloves and a couple candles if something, if you can get into a car, at least you're out of the wind. And that's very crucial. A lot of homeless people, they check doors. They're not going into cars to steal stuff, they're going to get out of the wind. And Grand Traverse County, we got a lot of homeless people. So lock your car. Cars are targets of opportunity for thieves and homeless people. Right? Now, I always leave my car locked because there's always guns in it. Wouldn't that be great? Have somebody go in to get warm. Hey, I can sell this. All right. Chronic adaptations to exercise. Okay. Regular consistent exercise leads to several adaptations that allow the body to improve performance. I think we get that. Cardiorespiratory endurance capacity is determined by the ability of the cardiovascular and respiratory systems to deliver oxygen to active tissues and the ability of those tissues to extract and use oxygen during prolonged bouts of exercise. Okay? Got a summary here. Cardiac output, decreased heart rate at any submaximal effort, including rest. That's me. Okay? Increased capillary density. Increased stroke volume at rest in all intensities. Increased number of mitochondria. So that means mitochondria, more ATP production. Increased maximal cardiac output. Increased activity of mitochondrial enzymes. Good things happen. As I said, a lot of people have the belief that in our genetic blueprint, we only have so many beats of our heart to go around before we're gonna croak. Nathan's heard this before.
My old captains use it all the time.
You said that?
My elder captains use it all the time for not working out.
Yeah.
That's what he uses as his excuse
That's
to not
right.
exercise?
you only give it, God only gave you
Yeah.
amount of these. Yeah, whatever.
So, yes, that's nuts to not do anything with it. But the rationale is, if you can get your heart to beat more efficiently and slow it down, if that's
There you
true,
go. There you go.
you just bought yourself some time. Like I said, gang, they said last night, after I even drank a bunch of these, Ann and I were working over some formulas, yeah, took my heart rate as a 48. That's after
That's nuts.
probably about 12 of these things. So anyways,
I've never gotten
yeah,
them.
and I wasn't all excited, you know, we were having a nice conversation, had a meal and so forth, but again, that's a chronic adaptation to exercise. Heart rate is going to go down, blood pressures will come down. That's not to say you're gonna get rid of hypertension necessarily, but it'll help it, right? Okay.
When I was training for the marathon, I would have obviously caffeine intake and then exercising, whatever. One year I gave coffee up for Lent, and I could not get my resting heart rate below 60. But with it, I would go down to 38, 40, but it was
Yep.
kind of like the rebound,
Yep.
body revolting against me. So I bet you if you quit those pops, your heart rate you would see an increase in your heart rate.
Probably, because I'm used to it.
Yeah.
What's good in those anyways?
What, these?
Yeah.
Water. It's mostly.
It's got water in it. You sound like half the people I talk to.
Okay.
Well, my diet
Let's
pop
put
is
this to
okay.
rest. Aspartame can be a known carcinogen, okay? Everybody said, oh, that's gonna kill you. Okay, the study, they're using laboratory rats. You know what the recommended dose that they were getting as opposed to a safe level? 10 to 20,000 times. If you get 10 to 20,000 times the oxygen you need, you're gonna die too. You know, so
They don't contain aspartame anymore.
It's carbonated water though.
yeah, that's all it is. Probably the biggest risk to me would be for my teeth, carbonic acid. That's why I brush all the time and floss. Okay, like I said, cardiorespiratory changes, increases in blood volume, that's an adaptation to exercise. Increases due primarily to plasma, and to a lesser extent, red blood cells. Plasma volume can increase 12 to 20% after 3 to 6 aerobic training workouts. The number of red blood cells may increase, but the ratio of red blood cell volume to total blood volume may decrease. Okay? Again, getting back to the reason why some people do blood doping. Okay? Cardiorespiratory changes, heart size and volume. Okay? Increase as an adaptation to increased work level demand, but return to pre-level training within several weeks of training ceases. This, gang, is also known as the rule of reversibility. Okay, characterized by an increase of the left ventricular cavity and slight thickening of the walls. Remember, in its own, an enlarged heart can be a sign of disease too. So a big heart's not necessarily a good thing, but specifically, the increased fitness value of the left ventricular wall, slight thickening due to muscle is a good thing. Not an overall, because there's an enlarged heart can be a sign of heart disease too, but that doesn't say that it's being enlarged for the capacity to do work. Different. Okay, increase in size due to endurance training and an increase in blood volume. Adaptations lead to an increase in cardiac force and the amount of blood pumped per beat. Decreased resting heart rate, okay, and exercise heart rate for a given intensity allow for longer diastolic filling and reduced work requirement for the heart, okay? Improved VO2, maximal oxygen uptake, and decreased cardiac stress. Good reasons to train. The Fick equation, used to determine the rate at which oxygen is being used during physical activity, okay? Anyways, stroke volume at rest, stroke volume at max, okay? Untrained, 50 to 70, trained, 80 to 100. Untrained, 70 to 90 in a trained heart, stroke volume max, 110 to 150. Highly trained, 90 to 110, 150 to 220. Okay, so remember, an adaptation to training, you're going to become more efficient. That's the whole reason for it. Okay, let me see if my guest is next door.